Continue. This is Tuesday, June 3rd, 2014. Tonight, first on the agenda is the Fitchburg Public School Systems. Superintendent Ravenel. And I'm not sure what the title is anymore. Is it Assistant Superintendent or Assistant Superintendent Juggler? But close enough isn't right. So what is right?
We did not call each other this morning for the dress code.
Yeah.
And he wanted to go home and change, and I said, no, you know, stay with what you are. It's patriotic. So I did, thank you. Great to be here tonight. And I spoke to Councilor Hay and said that, you know, what I did last year was just read the cover letter because there are people at home who could be educated in terms of what have we done this year and what does it look like. It's not 10 pages long, it's only a page and a half. So that's how I'll start. I present this FY15 budget with pride that our district has raised the academic level of 3 of our schools and made significant progress in all of the others. This progress has been made with the dedicated fiscal investment of the city, strategic leadership, and the focused determination of our administrators, teachers, and support staff to provide the best possible school system for our families. Our innovation in many areas has been showcased in both the state and national venues. Our students have won numerous academic competitions and recognitions, and locally we have been featured in many articles and editorials. The pride is back. Below are some of the areas of success. We maintained a comprehensive and competitive academic arts and sports program through all our grades, including an advanced academic learning initiative in grades K to 8, presented Fitchburg High School's second musical in a decade, The Little Shop of Horrors, and expanded instrumental music down to the 3rd grade. We completed a successful year 1 of the Fitchburg High School Honors Academy, which recently enrolled a second class of 50 students for this fall. We have also successfully grown the school within a school to provide a pathway to success for students with attendance, familial, and academic challenges. And actually, this coming year, we're going from 50 students, and the teachers in that group are identifying 74 students for that program. In year 3 of our partnership with a competitive grant, the Massachusetts Math and Science Initiative, we have tripled the number of high school students taking advanced placement courses, which continues to close the achievement gap, and will be piloting a middle school pre-AP program this coming fall. We provided the rigorous opportunities in and outside the classroom for 2 additional Fitchburg High School students to be recognized by Channel 5's A+ award for the 2nd year in a row. Last year, we also had 2 Channel 5 A+ students. And for some of our students to be accepted into some of the most competitive colleges and universities, including this year, Princeton University. We've begun a citywide community service initiative, instilling pride and appreciation in our students. That has to do with painting and graffiti removal and park renovation and things of that type. We worked hard this year to generate pride and presence of the Fitchburg Public Schools. This includes a part-time position of Family and Community Partnership Champion that has sought out, vetted, and publicized the many exciting things going on in the district, and increased our collaboration in community, as well as numerous branding initiatives such as the sign at Ashby State Road Rotary, and eventually new electronic signage for all of our schools. We have met every recommendation of the 2-year Accelerated Improvement Plan from the Department of Ed and initiated several new goals for the next 2 years. In 2012, we negotiated a contract in a collaborative process that will provide 20 minutes a day of additional academic time at the schools beginning this fall. We implemented year 2 of the new educator evaluation and have begun work on the district determined measures component. District determined measures are for every teacher, for every employee who is certified, there are going to have to be 2 types of assessment, which will play in a portion of their evaluation. And we invested over $290,000 in new technology, mostly end-user devices across the district for students. All the foregoing was accomplished in FY14 with a budget of $48,400,000. We continue to improve the academic experience for our students in an ever-changing environment. There are factors that school districts have influence over. For example, contracts, professional development, length of the school day. and those we do not, especially funding changes resulting from macroeconomic changes and the involving social demographic trends. Fitchburg, like many districts, especially urban, is and will continue to be challenged by these trends, including special education student-driven commitments. We view this challenging environment as an opportunity to continue the innovation described both above and within each of the schools and departments in the FY15 budget narrative. I thank you for your support on approving the recommended $49.2 million FY15 appropriation for direct operating expenses, and I remain fully engaged in providing an excellent public education which creates a well-educated, socially responsible, and civic-minded student body for the future of Fitchburg and beyond. Go Red Raiders. So that's my summary of everything in this book, and I'm open to any questions or ideas or suggestions you may have.
Questions and comments from the councilors? Councilor Boschman.
It doesn't really have anything to do with the budget, but I was wondering, some of my constituents asked me, how come we don't have a uniforms in the school system where it works in other school systems? I mean, it doesn't cost that much to have uniforms. I mean, I get proof from Lawrence, they send me some documentation, pants cost $14, a shirt costs $12, and they can pass it down to other kids. And I know between 70 to 80% of the people get free lunches at the school, if I'm not mistaken. So I think it would be better for everybody if we had school uniforms, don't you?
Well, we've tried it. I'm in my 9th year here, and I think the school uniform idea has gone around 3 times. It went around from the school committee at first, and they did a lot of exploring into that. And then 2 years ago, one of the schools decided to pilot it themselves, and we had about 2 or 3 classrooms, and it never seems to gain traction. There are issues in terms of the mandating of it, the paying for them, and the experience that we've had has been that if it's not generated from the student body and from the parents themselves, if it's implemented from above, you're going to spend a lot of your day and a lot of your time trying to implement something that's not necessarily coming out of the needs and the hopes of the student body and the students and the parents. We've not revisited it this year. Actually, I think one of the years it was one of the goals of the school committee to explore it. We've explored it now 3 times, and the sense is, I think a lot of what we're accomplishing is being accomplished without the focus on the student uniforms.
The reason why I ask is, like, I hear what you're saying, and I think it was South Street School that you implemented
It was South Street School, that's right.
But it's almost like putting a Pepsi machine out there and a Coca-Cola and tell the kids, we don't want you to drink it. But they still drink it, so what you do, you take the Coca-Cola out, you take the Pepsi out, and you put water in there. Now they're drinking water instead of Coke and Pepsi. If you make it mandated, like Lawrence did or Haverhill, it works good. Yes, in the first year, they had trouble, but now the whole student body loves it. Everybody comes in. Yeah, you have your 1 or 2, but they have an extra uniform in the closet, and they take it out. You have to wear this. According to the documentations that I have, and I ask questions because I've been a pro-advocate of this for many, many years, and I think it alleviates a lot of the problems for the poor people, the ones that don't have a lot of money, the kids that don't have a lot of money. That's my opinion. And a lot of parents feel the same way I feel, that they should have uniforms. That's why I ask these questions.
And those are good questions. Given the structure that we have, those questions are either vetted at the school level, where the school looks at it, or it would be something that the school committee would, and Sally Cragen actually was kind of the lead on that, and was very interested in it. You know, there are only so many horses you can put in the race, and the goal is to win the race. And our attention span in terms of what we can focus on, we've really kind of diverted our focus on things that we actually can direct and can control. And for every study that shows the effect that uniforms has, there are similar studies that would say it hasn't made any impact. If we were to mandate something, we would also have to figure out a way to fund it, because like middle school sports, we don't charge for middle school sports. And yet, all of our students participate in middle school sports and get that benefit. So if I were to say, you have to do something, I would either have to figure out how parents could afford it themselves, or I would have to figure out how I'm going to fund it. Otherwise, I would have, and Lawrence, right now, has been taken over by the state. And one of the advantages of being taken over by the state is there's a lot of things that can be dictated, and there's a ton of extra money that comes flowing in. So, not disagreeing on the value of it. Clearly, it's something that's been in the air because we've visited it 3 times, and if the school committee wanted to follow that route, we could bring it up in a conversation and see if there's interest.
I got one more question. I think I approached you a couple of years ago, if you recall right, I think it was in this room. I talked about uniforms. My other question is, not everybody is going to college from Fitchburg High School. Not everybody can get into Monty Tech from Fitchburg, because it's 377 students. My concern is the students that does not go to college, he leaves your school with a high school diploma. In today's world, you need skills. Is there any possible way you can look at the possibility of instituting some skills in your high school, like reading blueprints or running machines or basic fundamentals of electricity and that?
We actually have some things like CAD/CAM. We actually have a small woodworking course. The problem that we have is because we're connected with a vocational tech school, we are not allowed to duplicate any programs that exist in the Voc Tech School by law. So we're very limited as to what we can do. We have, some engineering programs at the school. We have computers. We have CAD/CAM online. There are things like that. There's a small woodworking course, but we're not able to duplicate those programs.
So what happens to the kids that don't go on to college? They work a day? The ones that don't leave, when they graduate from your school, what happens to them? They don't have any skills. What can they do?
A lot of them actually work, get jobs.
Yeah.
We have some pretty good, collaborations with some of the local businesses, and some of them go into those jobs. The diplomas that they get today, the diploma, even though it is just a piece of paper, without it, it's really hard to even get in the door. But we try to provide as many skills as we can. We have some students who the alternative high school is not providing for them, so 2 years ago or 3 years ago, we started a collaboration with Job Corps. So we have a number of students who are Fitchburg High School students who are both living and studying and learning skills at Job Corps, which is nearby.
Okay.
What's that? Councilor Clark.
Thank you, Mr. President. Andre, could you go over a little bit about net school spending and how the city's always kind of chased to get net school spending totally funded? Where are we? Do we wait until the end of the year before we see that, or?
I'll let you
Yeah,
answer
I'll take that question.
Bob? Yeah.
We work very closely with the city auditor,
Yep.
and as the budget process evolves, usually in the spring, we get a number that's our direct operating costs budget for the following year. For next year, it's $49.2 million. That's based on an estimate of what the city auditor puts together for after they calculate all the indirect charges, retirement, health insurance, things like that. So I think, and I can't speak on behalf of the city, but I'll try to summarize, and if Mr. Saracen wants to jump in, he's free to do so. The city gives us their best number kind of in the spring as to what they feel, I'll say 100% confident that they can meet. And what's happened over the last 2 years is where there's been a little bit of, I'll say, flexibility on the indirect side where the costs have actually come in less. They're able to give a little bit more in terms of the appropriations, and this year it happened to be $400,000. A year ago it was $1 million. So I think this year in the budget presentation, there's a section where, based on the numbers that the city auditor had provided me and what I calculate as the direct spend, there's probably only a little over $100,000, I'll say short, but that could be, that could change over the course of the year based on what the actual cost will be, what busing transportation will be. So I think it's a pretty good estimate. You know, I don't want to say nothing's ever 100%, but we're usually pretty close.
It sounds like we're a lot closer than we usually are. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
a few years ago, we were
Right.
not even close, right?
Well, and there's really been an effort, what Bob was referring to was, if you remember, a year ago, there was an appropriation that was made later on in the year of $1 million. And that effort was, it was adjusting, we were making a lot of guesses in the spring of where it's going to be. So that was an adjustment that was made. This past year in January, I think it was, there was another adjustment of $400,000. The understanding that we've all come to is that if we don't work to keep that as close as possible, it doesn't go away. It then starts, it's, you know, like a credit card, it doesn't get paid. It just adds on and adds on and adds on. And that's where we were, I would say 8 or 9 years ago, that's where we were, trying to play catch-up. And what we've done so far in the last 5 or 6 years is done that catch-up every single year so that it doesn't carry over and then multiply.
Thank you.
Councilor Bean.
Thank you, Mr. President. Gentlemen. I just had a quick question. We had a early budget session last week on the purchasing department, and during that discussion, there was a line item for an additional deputy procurement officer, and at the bottom, it said, less school departments, $56,000. Is that something we can see I mean, how many years are we looking at it? So you're helping there, because, I mean, that person is going to be a full-time person, I believe, so it'd be a hire, so they'd be with us for a while. Is that, so as long as that person's with us, you'll be paying that amount?
Well, we came to that because our needs, we play a big role in the city with a
Right.
lot of needs. So during a lot of conversations, it became clear that if there was a way for us to help that, by helping the city, we help ourselves, you know?
Right.
So we've made that commitment for a year. You know, I think I can speak for the school committee to say that if, in fact, that investment, you know, that there's a value added and we're getting a return on our investment after the first year, that's a commitment that we would continue. And you want to go into
Well,
more details?
I think it's an investment that I would say we continue based on our, you know, our need. The principal reason for us committing to the 80% was because of the backlog, you know, for the school department. So we're actually utilizing school choice funds, which are separate from the operating budget that the school committee approved last night. So we would need to reassess where we're at a year from now, the progress on the projects, and what the funding environment will be next year.
Right. And I appreciate your honesty, but that puts
Yeah.
us puts me in a quagmire because, you know, voting for a full-time position that would be here for a while and only having commitment for 1 year each year is a little difficult because, you know, we have other needs and, you know, do we want to be out next, you know, 2 years laying this person off because we don't have the money from the school department? So that's why I decided to find out. So the commitment is for 1 year right now.
Right.
For 1 year right now. And one of the things we do with our budget every year, and we just did it before this budget started, is we take every single thing we have. I have a column where I list everything, and I say, okay, what's the value added? You know, for us in education, I say, what's been the value added in terms of academic achievement in education? Then I say, what has been the value added in terms of our profile in the city and in the state? And then we go down that list. And every year, we kind of go back and reevaluate everything and saying, okay, if this is still a 10 and a 10 and it's adding value, then that's something, because like this year, I have to constantly look and make cuts in the budget if I want to keep some things going. So my hope would be that, you know, in this endeavor, that there would be value added on both sides of both the city and the school department, and we'd be able to continue it off. But right now, we're just looking for some sort of a fix to break the logjam and get some things moving.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mayor Wong, you'd like to comment on that?
Actually join you up here.
Okay.
The way that we would calculate this in future years is that the amount of time spent by anybody involved with purchasing, so the chief procurement officer, this deputy procurement, and the assistant, will be calculated via net school spending. The reason why we can't do that right now is we don't have an exact schedule of all the things that we're doing right now. So in future years, we'll get a credit, but not a direct credit. We'll get a credit via that 49.2 being tweaked up or down depending on the percentage, but likely it'll be a credit towards the city. because likely all 3 of those will utilize their time for school projects. Because a lot of the school projects are things that happen every year. You know, energy contracts, food service, busing, some of those are 3 or 5 year contracts, but every year there is a significant portion of requisitions and contracts that are spent on school. And once we have the scheduling as a percentage of the total, we'll be able to calc something. And my assumption is going to be 56,000 plus or minus, maybe even more, depending if it's a school project every year. So that will be the sustainability of that person.
Bob, you'd mentioned a log jam. How many projects are you behind, or what could you just
Well,
explain that?
we've submitted a list of about a dozen projects.
Are they like what they call 30B projects, or they, and I guess there's a definite, now there's a
no, I
category of 30B, and then there's the, in addition to a high school.
Well, we have no additions.
Okay.
But in terms of meeting the Chapter 149 or capital projects, a majority are capital right now. But we still have some 30B projects, ordering additional computer end user devices that are funded by grants.
But the ones that are backlogs are not 30B, they're the other, yes or not?
Well, there's some that are 30B,
Okay.
but mostly it's capital.
Okay, okay. And did any, and again, last year you didn't have a log jam, I'm just trying to get a sense, so it just became this year?
Well,
Or is it
we've
all-
had things that have been building up in backlog.
Okay.
So.
Okay, thank you.
Following up on that, I would say that Councilor Bean's questions lead me to conclude, as we discussed the other night, the possibility of, instead of hiring a city employee, we hire a consultant to help with this backlog of purchasing things, because there's no guarantee the money's going to be there. My question for you, Andre, is you get an $800,000 increase. Is that due just to cost increases, or are there new positions or programs that are included in the budget?
Okay, good question. I'll take you to, if we look at the PowerPoint presentation on page 8, on section 8, I'm sorry.
I don't need to see it.
So on page 8 of section 8, there's a slide that says changes from 13 to 14. So in the left-hand column, you have staff additions. So the first staff addition, the only place that a teacher is being added to the school district is at South Street Elementary School, because there are 5 grades there, and the first 4 of the grades have 5 sections, and the 4th grade only has 4 sections. So now this bubble is moving through, the lump through the boa constrictor, and that 3rd grade is going into 4th grade, and everything else needs 5 sections. So we're having to add a teacher there, so it's 5, 5, 5, 5, and 5. The next one is Goodrich Academy, which is our alternative high school. That is 1.5 teachers, but the way Goodrich Academy works, you don't hire the teacher and then go get the kids. The kids come in, and then you go, who's here this trimester? What do they need? Sometimes it's math, sometimes it's science, sometimes it's ELA. But the number of students that are now enrolled at Goodrich Academy are requiring another 1.5 FTE to meet their needs towards graduation. The other increase in cost, and that's a projected increase, is $100,000 for busing. The busing contract is going out, and we're expecting there'll be an increase, but we're not sure what that will be. Then the fourth one is sped increases. I spoke about this last year. That is the moving target for us that changes weekly. And the greatest shift in cost for us are families who move into Fitchburg, whose children are in outside placements somewhere in the state or out of the state. And because they live in Fitchburg now, we become responsible for the tuition costs. And those can be anywhere from $85,000 to over $300,000 a year. And anyone who moves in before April 1, the receiving district now becomes responsible for that cost. After April 1st, the district that they're coming from still maintains that cost. So this is, if there's anything that is a moving target, this is it. And then the last piece is the $560,000 for contractual salary increases. That amount represents every increase for everyone in the school district. So from custodians to principals, that's the whole salary increase for everybody for the whole school district. So those, as you can see, those increases alone are more than $800,000. So and then we had other areas where we were able to make reductions, and then in the bottom slide, you see the actual reductions that we've had to make to actually balance the budget and get it to the $49,200,000. I don't know if that answers your question.
Certainly does. Counselor Joseph?
My questions are around school choice, where it looks like we're going to be receiving $964,000. That's a reduction of $300,000. Is that because of the less students coming in, or is that just a conservative budgeted number?
Well, I guess the best way to answer that is the 964 is more historical numbers. Last year, for some reason, when we calculated the number of students choicing in, they actually did a mid-year adjustment to us when they made the payments. Looking at Mr. Saracen, if he recalls that, how they made the adjustment this past year. So prior to that, it had just been under $1 million. So next year's school choice in funding is, in more historical norms.
Is there somebody, I see in the tuition, we're going to be paying out $2.4 million, so 2.5. For every one student we get, 2.5 go. And I'm just, is there somebody in the school system that tracks whether or not these students ever came into the school system and their school choice, whether they were in the school system and they left the school system? Is there some kind of a report that we could get that encompasses that $2.5 million? Because that's a lot of money.
Right. The big numbers are on the Department of Ed website for all of the towns in the area. We have been, it's done, I think, quarterly, so that if somebody comes or goes, it's not like you pay and then that's it, whether they come or go. So it's done quarterly. One of the things that we've been doing to try to get a better sense of this is Jana Harrison, who is the PR person that I mentioned in the budget. She's actually calling every single family who is outside the district on school choice and having a conversation with them about, why are they school choicing out? What would make them come back? What kinds of things are they looking for? And I have to say that the conversations have, one, been enlightening, and in a few cases have been fruitful. Because there's a lot of misperception out there. People make decisions for all kinds of reasons, and sometimes they're not based on fact. Or they're based on one experience. I mean, how many of us have had a bad experience at a restaurant and it doesn't matter what anybody else says about it or how it's reviewed, we never go back again. So it's that same kind of thing. So what we're trying to do is put a personal piece on this, and that's one of the goals of the school committee has been, let's find out who they are. Let's talk to them and find out what it is that they need. And it's also what's driven some of the stuff we've been doing with the Advanced Academic Learning Initiative, the Honors Academy. I put lacrosse in 2 years ago because every surrounding district had lacrosse. Now, that may not sound like a sensible thing to do, but we've kept a lot of kids in the high school, and now here we are, one of the new lacrosse teams just starting out, and our win and loss is pretty impressive. So it's all of those things. We spent a lot of hours trying to figure out, okay, what's the thing that's going to, make us the first choice of a resident here in Fitchburg. So that the overall statistics, not the individual ones, but the overall statistics are all kept by the Department of Education.
Right, but what I'm trying to figure out is how many, if I move from Leominster to Fitchburg, and I choose to keep my kids in the Leominster school, and they school choice out, they never even were a student in Fitchburg. I'm trying to find out if we know how many students are in school choice that have never stepped foot in a Fitchburg school and have moved into the area and not come into the school system.
We can actually access that. We can access that information.
There's a state report that it's called it's the Town and City Report.
Yeah.
It comes out every January, and we're provided with the names of all the residents of Fitchburg who school choice out. So we can, I mean, there are students who leave directly from a parochial school and school choice out, who've never crossed our doorstep. It's the town.
We can provide that for you.
And then that's the list we provided to Jana for her.
Right. I mean, I have a neighbor that moved in from another town.
Yeah.
Their students never have been a Fitchburg student, so obviously they decided to stay where they were coming from, so we never even saw them, but yet we're paying for them.
Right, that now becomes
So,
school choice.
I really would like to know how many students are actually from Fitchburg,
Yeah.
were here in the first grade and said, hey, no, this system is really messed up, I'm going to leave. Because I don't think that's really the case in the majority of the situation. So I'm trying to get my hands around why we're spending 2.5 to 1 for students. And out of that 900 and some odd $1,000 that we're taking in, is the majority of that in the alternative education school, or is that?
Percentages, not the majority.
I think the last time we looked at it was in the high 30s.
Yeah. High 30s and the rest are the rest of the school.
So 1/3 of all of our
Right.
money, that's 900, is coming just to one
That's
school.
right. Yeah. Which speaks, though, to the uniqueness of the
Oh,
program.
absolutely.
Which
I
speaks to
mean-
the uniqueness of the program, and which is that kind of our philosophy, and what's driving what we're doing is to continue to create unique programs that say, if I'm going to get that, the only place I'm going to get that is in Fitchburg. The only honors academy compact with a university in the state of Massachusetts is in Fitchburg. It's the only one that exists, and it's a 5-year contract. So we've had, and our issue now is, we are having people from surrounding communities saying, how do I get to that? That's a nice problem to have, but I'm also not going to deny a Fitchburg resident the opportunity, to get somebody from outside. But that's a problem that I'm happy to have, and we're working on. But we'll get you those numbers.
And I guess that leads to my next question. Is there
Counselor
any?
Joseph, could I, just for 1 second, Counselor Green?
Yeah, I need to recuse myself from the rest of the meeting.
The last question. She made me forget what it was going to be. No, I'm just kidding. Is there any grade level or school within the district of Fitchburg that is not accepting school choice students?
No.
So every school, every program, every district is accepting.
Yes, and every year the
has
school
capacity.
committee in the spring has to vote on it to say, we will be accepting school choice students. And then if a grade becomes closed out, I'd actually have to go back to the school committee, and they would have to re-vote to pull that grade or that school out of school choice.
Okay, so all the wonderful programs that you told us since the beginning, and 1/3 of our school choice money is coming because of alternative ed, but not because of those other wonderful, I mean...
Well, what we
it's
won't
just-
know is how many students are we keeping
Right.
because of those. So it's not just how many are coming in, but the goal is how many, we keep asking, what are your needs? What do you want? And can we keep offering the things that would give people what they need here?
Okay. I guess I would appreciate it if you would choke me with data. I'll just take anything that you can give me, just so I can sift through it myself. Thank
We
you.
will.
Counselor Di Natale?
The thing that we have to understand is that for the schools to pitch in 80% of the purchasing services, that means the schools are anticipating getting 80% of the work out of that new hire. And based on the need, that percentage will continue to drop or increase based on what the purchasing needs are after that year. So essentially what's going to end up happening is if this position works out, and I say it's not going to work out, we're going to end up paying for the whole thing ourselves. And unfortunately for the school department, like the rest of our city departments, this new person, this panacea, if you will, that's going to solve all the problems, it's not going to have any effect. There's still going to be problems there. There's been 14 months now to this date that the principal of Goodrich Academy has been asking, begging, pleading for marquee electronic signs at his school and at the high school. And it's taken 14 months and they're still nowhere near to completion. For 2 electronic signs, 14 months. So if we all think we're going to have one extra person take care of all this mess, we're out of our minds if we're going to believe that. Because this problem goes well beyond personnel amount. So unfortunately, I hope very much that you guys get the best bang for your buck out of this position. This is a position that was already hired, that we never authorized through funding. So we took it, the administration took it upon themselves to just hire someone without our approval. And like the rest of the city departments, I wish you good luck in getting the services that you want from this hire, because unfortunately, this hire is going to be in an environment that hasn't been efficient. So I don't know what's going to happen, but be that as it may, what is the level ranking of all of our schools from an MCAS perspective? How many are level 1, level 2, level 3, and then obviously none of them are level 4, because that's state intervention. How many are 1, 2, and 3?
Crocker Elementary School is now a level 1 school. They were a level 2 school last year. McKay and Lonjo are now level 2 schools. They were level 3 schools last year. And the rest of our schools are level 3 schools. And your district is described, the level to your district is assigned by the lowest level school. So if you could have all level 1 schools in one level 3 school, you'll be a level 3 school district. I'm very confident with what I'm hearing right now that we will maintain the progress that we've made, and I'm hoping for some really good news in the coming year in terms of some of our other schools. We were just talking to the high school principal this afternoon, and in looking at the students who are in the school within a school, who are students coming into the high school, who probably had some of the greatest challenges, he said there were no empty open response questions. There were no blank spaces at any of them. Everyone had responded, and he was also calling to give us the good news that that group of students had 100% attendance today. And that's a group of students that traditionally in middle school, some of them had 30%, 40%, 50% attendance, and they're regularly getting over 90% attendance. And as we all know, if you don't show up, you can't learn. Nobody can teach you. So I'm really confident that you're going to be hearing more positive news about the academic growth in the district in the coming year.
How much of an impact has Common Core had on curriculums in the district in comparison to MCAS? How does that work out between the federal Common Core and the state MCAS?
Well, we've been implementing the Common Core now over a few years, and there are two separate things. There's the core curriculum, so there's the Common Core, and then there's the testing of that curriculum. MCAS does not test the Common Core. So even if the new test is called PARC, what people don't understand that even if we don't accept or adopt PARC, it's not going to be MCAS as it is today. It's going to be like MCAS squared, MCAS on steroids, because there are things that have to happen in the testing that are related to a whole different way of looking at testing. So we've been in the process of developing the curriculum, working on the curriculum. We've implemented an evaluation system that's really totally tied to what's happening in the classroom. And right now, we've actually been at the forefront of looking at PARC and comparing MCAS and PARC. And one of the things that we're going to be doing with the school committee at our next school committee meeting is I have to give them as much of a primer as I can on MCAS and PARC, because they're going to have to vote on which direction to go in, whether to go in the direction of PARC or MCAS. I'm part of the executive board of the School Superintendents Association, and we've done a lot of pushing back in terms of evaluation, implementation of the Common Core, and of the testing. Not to say this is not good, but you have to do it at a pace that it can actually be done. So a couple of the changes that have happened is, one is, they said that you can choose to go all of one or all of the other, so all PARC or all MCAS for the coming year. If you choose to go all PARC for the coming year, you're held harmless for a whole year. So if you do PARC and your scores go down, which it's anticipated they might because it's so new and a different kind of test, it won't affect your level. If you take PARC and you do well, you can go up. So it's kind of like the game of chutes and ladders, but only ladders, no chutes. So for 1 year, that's a really good thing. So the school committee will be looking at that. The other piece is, Park eventually is going to be administered through technology. We administered a pilot this year using both technology and pen and paper. What the change that they've recently made is, if you choose to go all Park, you can use both technology and paper, and you'd have to do it by school. Because one of the reasons we were not going to be able to do it for probably a couple of years, whole hog, is because we don't have the technology infrastructure to do it. So by changing this, it now allows us to have some schools do it with paper and pen, and with paper and pencil, and others to do it with technology.
So my last question involves school choice. Forgive me if you've already talked about it, but do you have any rough estimate off the top of your head, or you can provide it to us? What's been the trend of school choice in versus school choice out? Has it gotten better over years? Has it gotten worse?
No, there's, again, that's on the state website. I mean, I can tell you, I guess, just, I don't know if you have the numbers there from your budget book. But the coming in has been pretty level. Again, aside from last year, the 1.2 million, it's been between 950,000 and $1 million coming in.
Okay.
And I think out has been increasing by maybe about 100,000 a year over the last few years. So.
Yeah, that's about it, yeah.
Okay. And how much is impacting the school district on the charter, the charter reimbursement? Do we get reimbursement for charter?
We do, but what percentage now? It's not 100%. It's, I want to say it's in the 30s.
Yeah,
You said 30s?
Yeah, he said 30s.
30s.
It comes through the city. I mean, this is one of those.
Yeah, okay.
You know.
268,000.
It's based on the cherry sheet, and let me just say that every time a cherry sheet is updated, they update the school choice and the charter school choice and the charter school reimbursement.
So does that essentially mean that the number of students that go into the charter school, they reimburse us 30% of what that total cost of educating that pool of students would be?
For each student, it starts at a higher percentage, and then each year it goes down.
Okay.
That's how it goes. What's been interesting is our student population overall is remaining stable. It's gone up. In the last 3 years, we're at 5,200 students now, and it's been staying at that for the last 3 or 4 years. So even if people are some folks are choicing out, it's not affecting our student population. Our student population is remaining stable at about 5,200. And the high school graduating class, I want to say, is around 278 students. Our incoming kindergarten classes are anywhere from 420 to 450. So that's the bubble that's coming through.
I just wanted to close by saying that, being a former pupil of the public school system, I have deep appreciation for everybody who's in it and the students that go through there. It's, I'm biased, I guess, because I'm a product of that system. But, the system did me right in a lot of ways, and it's not an easy task for any person in that field to make headway in because of all the changes and whatnot. But I specifically want to give kudos to the school committee and to the administration on the tackling of capital infrastructure needs. There's been a lot of headway into that, and I see a nice detailed presentation at the end of this giving us a list of all projects that are in the pipeline, that have been done, haven't been done yet. And one specific item on that, my apologies, out of all of our schools, how many of the schools, in terms of roofs, because roofs and boilers have been a big topic of discussion, how many of the schools right now still have a need in the roof or boiler section of capital improvements? Are there any left?
Crocker.
Just Crocker. So that's, I think it was many years ago, 5, 6, 7 years ago, I think almost every school had
It was every,
boiler
not
issues.
almost, it was.
Every school
It
had
was
boiler
every
issues
school.
and roof issues, so really big headway there. And I think we've also done a lot of window replacements, right? So I'm sure that's helped with the
South Street
energy
has new
efficiencies.
windows, Memorial has new windows, Rheingold has new windows.
That's it.
And if Crocker's in the pipeline, if Crocker makes it to the pipeline, the goal will be that that'll get all new roofs, and there's a lot of ADA work that needs to be done there. It's a multi-level school. It's not accessible. So there's work that's going to have to go there, but we've really come a long way, and unfortunately, we accepted Bill Barletta's resignation last night at school committee, who's our director of maintenance. He's going to be going to work for Fitchburg State University. But he really has been a key person with his nose to the grindstone, working with Bob and working with me and the school committee to get all of this work done. So just again, I did last night, but kudos again to Bill Barletta.
For a district that had needs across the board in those two areas about a decade ago, to have it reduced almost practically to zero is pretty impressive, and it's a breath of fresh air. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions?
Make a motion that we accept the school department budget.
We'll do that all as part of the final review.
As part of what?
Final review.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, everyone.
Madam Chairman?
Vending machine here for water, do they?
No.
You send Paul to the store? We can just send Paul to the store.
Sure.
You want to go to the store and get water? Right.
I just don't understand why that front page. That's what mine is.
I mean, you can.
Yeah, I know. And we don't even have the PowerPoint.
Okay, moving on, we go to the Montechusett Regional Vocational Technical School. Montechusett Technical School assessment for the year is $1,743,610. Good evening.
I'm Tammy LaJoy. I'm the business manager for Monty Tech. Superintendent Sherritt couldn't be here with us this evening because it is student awards, senior awards ceremony this evening. So he needed to attend that, so you just get me. Well, I'd like to start off by saying the number of students in the foundation enrollment from Fitchburg that are in Monty Tech this year has gone up, and your assessment has gone down, so I think that's all you'll need from me. Thank you very much. At your place settings, and I apologize very much that this wasn't to you sooner. We've kind of had this budget year as a work in progress. As you know, you've gotten a couple of assessment letters this year from us. But at your place settings, I put the bound version of our budget with a lot more detailed information. I put a PowerPoint in there that I'll go through. And also, you'll have another colored sheet with a breakdown of our line item budgets. That's because some things have changed in line items since the budget book was put together. I can briefly talk to you about that. Well, actually, what it was is that after we put the school committee originally approved the budget, our bus bid was opened. And unfortunately, I had projected a 5% increase in transportation. It came in at a 9.2% increase because we had to add 2 additional buses. We currently have 28 bus routes, but we had to add 2 additional, so we now have 30 buses that take care of the district. So that's the major change. The total budget, gross budget, didn't change, but we had to make cuts in other areas of the budget to keep within the same gross budget that we originally presented to you. So for many of you, and I think most of you have seen my presentation before, you know it goes on and on and on and on. I promise you, you're not getting that version this evening. I've shortened it down quite a bit. So I'll just begin, and I'll go through your PowerPoint presentation, and I'm just going to touch briefly. The first couple of things are what we've done this year with the funds. As you know, I think we've touted this several times, but it's worth saying as many times as we can. We did the major roof repair. We replaced 44 rooftop units, the lighting in the school. They put in a boiler system for our heat. That was a $10.7 million project with no additional capital requested from any of our communities. We're doing that through the energy savings that we project in other operational cuts that we're going to make in the school district, so all of that payback for the loan is through our net school spending number, so it's not in the capital assessment piece. I think that's really important. We estimate that we will save about $400,000 per year. It's about a 40% savings, and again, it's hard to put a number on it, but a 40% energy savings, no matter what the cost of energy is great. So it was a great improvement to the school. We've also expanded our curriculum a little bit. We've added 2 AP courses in English. We also began, through a grant that we received through the Massachusetts Life Sciences, we received a grant to redo 2 of our science classrooms. So we used the grant money to fund buying all the curriculum, the equipment, and then the school put in the money for the capital piece of renovating the labs, and we're able to have a dual enrollment course in biotechnology now with the new curriculum and the new equipment that's in the science lab. We also have a fantastic dropout rate, 0.5%. We also improved our school security thanks to the help of the city of Fitchburg. We contract with the city for our school resource officer. He's been a great addition to the school. We also had a cyber STEM camp, which is run through our junior ROTC program, and they had students in over the summer, and they teach them how to ward off cyber terrorism, and that was a great program that they ran over the summer. That'll be happening again. And also our first sergeant who runs that program at Monty Tech will also be holding it in 2 or 3 other states in the United States. He'll be going out there and lending his services. That's funded through the Department of Defense, not through Monty Tech. So he'll be out there imparting that knowledge with that also. What are we looking at to do with FY15? And I go back to a question Mr. Clark asked of the Fitchburg school districts. We're looking to meet net school spending this year. I know that's probably something you're not used to Monty Tech saying. We're going to try to meet net school spending this year, but with some changes in the state budget at the end of last year, with how the calculations for local required contributions were added, we actually ended up being $100,000 because we didn't go back looking for extra funds from the communities. We ended up being $100,000 shy of net school spending in this FY14 fiscal year. So we're just going to get back on track. We're looking to get back on track with that. We're also, you previously discussed Common Core. We're focusing on improving our Common Core literacy standards, and with that, we purchased a software, Achieve 3000, to assist with assessing student reading levels, and we're hiring, in this 15 budget, we're proposing to hire a literacy coach that will work across the curriculum, so both in academics and vocational, to work with the students and the program we purchased to help bring up student reading levels. Because they do come in at sometimes as low as 2nd and 3rd grade levels, and as and as high up. So that's a big focus we have this year in our budget. We're also looking to hire a half-time freshman guidance counselor. We currently accept approximately 350 to 370 freshmen, and that's the most, really their busiest year at Monty Tech. They're going through exploratory, pre-exploratory, they're trying to pick their trades. They need that kind of assistance in the transition. We only have one guidance counselor who services all 370 freshmen. So we're looking to hire somebody to work 2 to 3 days a week throughout the school year, so a half-time position. We're also working to continue with the educator evaluation system, as are all school districts, and purchasing some technology to bring us up to the park, put us with the park initiatives that are coming down the pike. So we're just trying to update our technology and make sure that we're ready for that to come down. We've also, as you know, thank you very much, supported our stabilization fund last year. And we are starting that in this year's budget. This budget proposes a $25,000 transfer into that fund. kind of a quick synopsis of our 15 budget summary. Our total foundation enrollment, so the total number of students that are attributed to Monty Tech on October 1, 2013, is 1,467. Now, that includes the students that are physically at Monty Tech. It also includes, as you were discussing, school choice. That's the students who reside in Fitchburg, who attend another vocational school. We assess for those students. And also, we have a Chapter 74 LPN program that if there's any students in district, get attributed to that. So that's an increase of 14 students from this year. We anticipate that total enrollment to stay pretty even-keeled to where it is. If you look if you get a chance to look through your budget, you'll see in fiscal 10 and 11 we had some big spikes in our enrollment. We are at maximum capacity, so this number we're projecting to stay pretty even going forward. So that will stop some of the fluctuations of enrollment. This budget is an increase of 3.5%. It's $855,553. And that's a total gross budget of $25,640,833. The biggest part of that is because we are right at, or as I told you before, a little below net school spending. Our net school spending increased 3% from what this year's budget is that we have, or $627,437. So most of that increase is generated by keeping up with net school spending. And again, what are we doing with that large increase? Well, I told you about a couple of positions that we're hiring. Also, the lease payment for that $10 million project, that is a $790,000 a year payment. So we actually make operational cuts. We are cutting electricity and gas by approximately $400,000, but we also have to make some other operational cuts to meet that. So coming up to that increase is easy. It was actually making the large increases to subsidize all that to stay within net school spending, which is what we had to do. Our Chapter 70, we are getting the absolute minimum of the $25 per pupil. So that our only Chapter 70 increase was $36,675 this year, only what they're minimally giving us. And again, I talked about net school spending. This FY15 budget projects our spending at $40,000 above net school spending. So we're right there. We're right at the required amount. And in these economic times, we feel that that's important to try to give the best bang for your buck, so to speak. Keep it right at the levels, but still provide the quality of education that you're used to getting from Monty Tech. Unfortunately, the member communities in a whole went up 8.8% because the net school spending number went up so much, and the state is starting to diminish what they're putting towards in Chapter 70 and other state aid. So that was a large increase to the total of our 18 communities. We are using $480,000 from E&D to offset the FY15 assessments. Our E&D that was certified as of July 1st was $686,593. We're leaving, I think we had a conversation about this the last time I was here, how very low we are in the E&D. Regional school districts can have 5% of their preceding year's operating expenses. So for us, that could be $1.2 million. We will have $200,000 in our E&D. Not, that's dangerously low, but we're not overly worried. We need to become less dependent on that E&D, so we're trying to use less and less each year. But again, that's just a talking point that we do realize it's low. We're working towards that in our future plans of keeping that at least at a level that if we have a major catastrophe, we can fund it and we don't have to come back to our communities. And again, I spoke to you about our pupil transportation. Huge increase, 9.2%, or $137,443 for the dollar figures. The next slide, screenshot on your PowerPoint, is our foundation budget. That's the basis really, for our entire budget. What it is the state comes up with an amount that you are to spend minimally per pupil. For Monty Tech, in FY15, that is $15,064. And if you multiply that by the 1,467 students, you'll come up with our foundation budget of $22,098,279. Again, ours looks much different from Fitchburg Public Schools. If you look at theirs, they have numbers all the way across: preschool, kindergarten. High school students and vocational are the most expensive, I won't say most expensive, next to special education costs. They are the most expensive students to educate. We provide all the same services that the comprehensive high schools offer, but we also operate 20 shops. And it's nothing for one piece of machinery in a shop that has 12 items for one piece to be $100,000 to $300,000. So that's why we have larger sums towards the foundation budget. The next screenshot is just a synopsis of the state, the Chapter 70 summary from the state. I'm kind of looking over to the right on the comparison to 14. It's just a reiteration of everything I told you. We had 14 students extra. You can see our foundation budget. The required district contributions from the communities went up. Our Chapter 70 aid, which was a small minimal increase, and our required net school spending. Our required net school spending, if you look down, it says required net school spending percent of foundation, 100.93%. Normally, a school district's foundation budget and their net school spending are the same number. It's not the case for Monty Tech and other school districts like us, and the reason is it's the hold harmless factor. This is where the whole left-hand side of this spreadsheet comes into play. If you look at our our current year, Chapter 70 of $13,764,000, that's what we're getting now. Then you look down the next part, it lists what our foundation budget is for FY15, what they say is the required contribution. The foundation aid, that's how much, that $13,595,344. That's what the state says we should get for Chapter 70, based on our foundation budget and what they're putting for requirements from the communities. But they're holding school districts harmless. They're not going to cut us by that $200,000 or $190,000 number for the difference between the 13.7 and that 13.6. They're holding us harmless. That's why we only get the minimum that I spoke of the $25 per pupil. That's what every school district gets, irregardless. So that's why that's all we're getting, because basically they're saying we're already getting too much, Chapter 70. So that's why the minimal. And if you add the two, the 13.7 and the 36,000 together, you get what our Chapter 70 is for FY15, 13.8. Well, they expect us to spend that, every dime of that. So that's why our net school spending number is different than our foundation budget number. That's something that's different over the last couple of years, because normally the two numbers would be the same. The next is the FY15 budget summary, and it's a snapshot of basically, again, everything I just told you. It's just visually different for the numerics. You can see how our gross budget went up. It's $25,640,833. We're subtracting out things, the things that don't count. Again, things that don't count towards net school spending. Bonding, capital expenditures, and pupil transportation. So we back those items out, apply the Chapter 70, and go down and apply all our transportation aid and any other revenues that we're looking to apply towards the budget. And you can see the bottom, our total assessments to all our communities is the $9.4 million. How is your community's assessment calculated? It's for Monty Tech, it's on a normal basis made up of 3 items. This year, there's a special item in there that we'll discuss. So it's your required contribution. Again, set by the state, we have no control over it. In this year, you may recall that we sent you a letter towards the end of late fall last year. When the state finally set their budget, it was not the same budget we had gone forward with to all our communities. All the local required contributions changed, and most of them went up. A couple of them went down. So what we did is, the school committee voted not to change the budget. That's why we're under net school spending. They voted not to change the budget because all our communities had already established their budgets for the year, and that we would make up for it. We would go up or down for each community in FY15. So Fitchburg is getting a credit on our FY15 assessment because you were essentially over-assessed your required contribution from last year, and I'll show you where that's calculated in the assessment sheet. The other pieces are the normal pieces: the transportation, the capital, and the bonds. Again, just a further breakout, because for anybody that may be new to the committee, there are two different methodologies to our assessment. Transportation, that's based on operating percentages, which means how many students are in the foundation enrollment number for Fitchburg on October 1, divided by the number of students in our foundation enrollment number, and you get a percentage attached to that. For capital and bonds, it's a capital apportionment, so that is how many Fitchburg students are in the Fitchburg school district that go to school, grades 1 through 12. There's no kindergarten in that because there was not kindergarten when the district agreement was signed. And that's divided by the total number of school-attending children in the district. And you get a percentage attached to that, and that's how we factor your capital and bond assessment. I'll show you in a second. The next two sheets, I like to provide this to you so you can see. The next two sheets are how your required contribution is calculated by the state. This is the number, again, we don't have control over. We've gone through this before. I've gone through this probably in nauseam detail with you, so probably most of you know how to read without me saying anything. If you have any questions on it, you feel free to ask me. But essentially, the bottom line for FY15, and this is on, if you look on row 15, your preliminary contribution to your school districts, the state is saying $17,533,237. The next sheet breaks that out and shows you how that $17.5 million is apportioned across Fitchburg Public Schools and Monty Tech, and it would be for any other school districts you may belong to. So you can see for Monty Tech, of that 17 million, your required contribution to Monty Tech is $1,578,366. So that's the basis for the assessment. That's column 1. Column 2 is the next sheet. This is where the over and under assessments came in. And you can see Fitchburg, we over-assessed last year by $26,785 from the governors to the final legislative numbers. So you will see that credit in column 2 of your assessments. Again, the next sheet is just a reiteration to show you from the state what the foundation enrollment number is for each of our towns and your required minimum contributions. Again, it's just a reiteration of that number. The next two sheets are your enrollment. So the foundation enrollment on October 1, 2013 for Fitchburg at Monty Tech was 403. And again, that counts school choice students out. And your school attending children, as reported to us, we get those figures from the superintendent of schools, his designee, was 5,847. And you can see in that column, our total district enrollment was 24,753. The next sheet gives you what percentage that gives Fitchburg of the Monty Tech budget. So you are 27.47% of our FY15 operating budget. You are 23.62% of our capital budget. That's an important number, not only with the capital, for your capital assessment, but I think a lot of people wonder, and you can stop me if you're all very comfortable with this number, that's how your quota for the following year is determined, by that number there. So if the school committee at Monty Tech sets the freshman class for next year at 370 students, you will get 23.62% of those students as your quota. That's why the numbers fluctuate each year. It's based upon your own enrollment over our whole district enrollment. But that's how, in a shortened version, that's how that's determined. The following sheet is the assessment sheet. And again, going across the columns for you, the foundation budget, again, was the first number we looked at, $15,064 per pupil, times the number of pupils from Fitchburg, 403. That's how they get the $6 million number. The next number is the required minimum contribution. I showed you the state spreadsheets, how that's calculated. The next column is the credit for the over-assessment in FY14. And the transportation and operating assessment represents Fitchburg's percentage, the 27.47% of our transportation costs, less our transportation aid that we're putting against it, less the E&D that we're putting against it. So the 129,497 represents your portion of that. Again, for the third year, we're not assessing any capital. We do have $290,000 in our capital budget, but we are using $290,000 worth of E&D to offset that amount. And that $290,000 includes the $25,000 that we're transferring to the stabilization fund. So there's no assessment based on that. And then the final column is the bonds. That's from the renovation project back in 2000. Those are the 20-year bonds, and that's the annual payment, less we still get the old-fashioned school building authority payments each year, and that's your 22% of those costs, 23.62, excuse me, of that. So that comes to your total assessment of $1,742,968. And I'm happy to report that even with 8 additional students, that is a decrease of 3,316 from the current year. The last sheet is just a synopsis of the 2 years. I like to show you that so you can see exactly where the changes and in what columns the changes are taking place in. And that is my presentation.
Thank you. Councilor Joseph.
Yeah?
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you raised your hand.
I'm sorry.
It's like, must have been when you were there.
Yeah, it must have been when I
Oh, sorry.
Any comments or questions from the councilors? I'd just like to say thank you for a thorough presentation.
thank you.
It certainly clarifies for us exactly what we're spending and why we're spending it. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you.
Motion second to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you, councilors.